Good evening, ladies and gents. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another live stream. Hope you're all having a lovely evening tonight. Hopefully you've all seen the Forest match against Brighton. 0-0 draw away from home. In the grand scheme of things, a positive result, I would say, in terms of, on paper, a team much higher than us in the league, pushing for European football. Away from home as well. We haven't picked up a point away from home, I think, since the Everton match. So, on that note, very positive on that note. On the other side of things, the tactics, not the best, very negative at times. I thought some performances were actually pretty good. I thought Dean Henderson was pretty good in his own right. On the other hand, though, there were some lackluster performances, to say the least. One thing you can't complain at, though, was the team did work very, very hard on the night. I do think we were much more solid, much more compact than we have been in recent weeks. I think the last couple of games, the Villa game especially, I think we've been better. In terms of the system, I think it's been much more compact. What we're sacrificing, though, is a real lack, isn't it? A real lack of creativity in the final third. We're going to get into the stats in a little bit. Just going to read the first couple of few messages in the chat. Huffy saying, first half poor, easy for me to say. Second half much better, at least we didn't lose. We'll take that as a win at the moment. Absolutely, I think the form we've been in, obviously a point against Villa, hadn't picked up a point since the Everton match prior to that. So it is a positive on that sense, but I do agree that it was a game that we grew into. I thought in the second half we actually had some decent opportunities. Opportunities to get into the final third. Yates had a cross that went across the box that sort of got sliced a little bit. Brennan had a chance to go out for a throw-in. So, I guess dribs and drabs in that sense. Robert thought mid-end of that second half we looked pretty good. Yeah, I thought we looked all right towards the end of the game. I thought we grew into it pretty well. Yates was, as you say, pretty good in the game. I think, I don't want to say it's overstated how good he was, because I do think he had a really good game. I thought he worked really hard. But at the same time, I don't think he is the best midfielder in that team. I think he works hard, but I don't think technically or athletically he is the best. But sometimes that's what you need. You just need a player to put in an absolute shift in the midfield to get you a point or 3 points, obviously in this case, a point. I thought he was pretty decent on the day. I thought he worked his absolute socks off. And credit to him, because there's been moments this season where you can definitely point the finger at a few players maybe not putting in the yards that they should be. And I think he is a player who, every time I've seen him play at least, he's worked his socks off. And whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, whether you maybe value technical ability over hard work, I personally love to see a player who works his socks off for the team. And I think Yates is a really good example of that. So that's just my views on that. I don't know if you guys have got any other opinions on that. So I think we're going to start by talking a bit more about the stats in a bit more detail. So we're going to shift over to the browser. Obviously, under stat, great resource for looking at in-depth stats. Obviously, you can look at things like shots and fouls and things like that. On the BBC, these are really good for looking at things like expected goals and more advanced footballing metrics. Going to bat Liverpool 5-0. Oh, mate, you know what? I'm more optimistic after that performance that we put in. I think we've shown that we can defend deep. It's just a case of whether we can break out. I think Liverpool have had some interesting results in recent weeks. I think we need the O'Brien and Mangala duo back. I really want to see them with Freuler in the midfield. I think on paper that's our best midfield. And it does feel bad, doesn't it? Because leaving Yates out of that midfield three, because obviously that would be what it would be, does feel harsh, because I do think he's been one of our best performers over the last few games. But on paper, that's our best midfield. You've got that sort of, box to box running of someone like Mangala. The defensive solidity that you get from O'Brien also offers a bit box to box. And then obviously Freuler is a really good threat at getting the ball into the final third. I think there's a misconception as to what kind of player he is. A lot of people think that he's like a controlling central midfielder, which I wouldn't say he was. Again, I haven't seen a lot of him outside of Forest. But the times I've seen him for Atalanta, he's the kind of player who wants to get the ball and get it into the final third rather than sort of sit and dictate play. But again, that's just what I've seen. If anyone else got any opinions on that, feel free to chime up. So these are the stats in a little bit more detail. Obviously, the big one is the chances. We did not have a lot of chances in that match, did we? I think you could probably count on one hand. Like I said, there was the one with Brennan where he got down the right-hand side, cutting on his left, went out for a throw-in. Taiwo had a couple of moments in the game where he looked pretty lively when he came on the pitch. There was a chance for Yates, I think it was, where he sort of sliced across the box, and unfortunately Lingard couldn't get onto the end of it. And generally, I don't think it was the most attacking solid performance from Forest, but defensively it was pretty good. Obviously, in terms of XG, they generated quite a lot of opportunities for themselves. 2 expected goals, 2.1 expected goals to 0.2. Of course, that is Brighton's hallmark, is underperforming their expected goals. I did mention in the preview, if you haven't checked out, go check out for this, that they are a team who have historically underperformed their expected goals, and this is a really good example of that. They just don't have that quality number 9 that unfortunately can do that. Deep completions, so these are like passes that are completed, well, you can see what it says, complete within 20 yards of goal. And that's, you can sort of, if you're ranking high in that, it means you're controlling the game really well. And Brighton obviously are a team who do that very well. They were very good at sort of rotating possession in and around the box, creating chances for themselves. Obviously, we saw that they created absolute bucket load for themselves. And that's, where we really need to improve, is getting some control in and around the final third when we do get the chance to break forward. And the final one I want to talk about is obviously shots. You can see there, 19-3. Didn't create a whole lot. Passes per defensive action, so that's pressing intensity basically. How many passes the opposition are putting together before we attempt to tackle or in interceptions. Brighton's was very good, so good in the Premier League is sort of underneath 10. If you can keep below 10, you're having a really good, and obviously it's dependent on the team and what works for your system, but Brighton historically are a team who've gone really well. They press well, they're aggressive, out of possession at regaining possession. Whereas Forest obviously at 20. We've hit around 15 for most of the season. There have been games where we've actually done quite well in terms of having an intense press or winning back the ball. There have also been games like this one where we've been a bit more reserved. And whilst you can't read too much into it because of course it's dependent on the system that you're playing, it also suggests that we're a team that are quite standoffish. And I do think sometimes we could be a little bit more aggressive, or we should be a bit more aggressive and proactive at trying to win the ball back. But again, that's just my opinion on that. I agree with you, David. I don't think you can drop Yates at the moment. I think he's the only player who is, okay, maybe he's not the best player in the team in terms of performances at the moment, but I feel like he's the only player working at maybe 100% capacity in terms of his work rate. I absolutely agree with that. And, that's no slight on anybody else in the team. A lot of them are learning a new system. Guys like Freuler and Mangala are obviously learning a new language and a new country and a new culture and all that kind of stuff. But it does... Yates is probably the only player who's working at that 100% capacity, like I say. Like Huffy says, he had a busted nose, took a couple of kicks to the ribs over the course of the match. And, it's cliche, but he did show that fight that you need that little bit of zip and energy. I think one of his really underrated parts of his game, and it's something I've noticed in the last couple of games I've seen him, he's really good at just sort of picking up little niggly fouls, isn't he? Just sort of like, holding the ball off and just quickly winning a foul to just sort of break the patterns of play for the opponents. That's one thing I've noticed about Yates, like in the last couple of games, and when you've gone back and looked at highlights, I think you'll probably notice it's the same, that he's very good at, when he does get possession, he's not very flashy, he doesn't get the ball forward all the time, but he can win fouls, which is actually pretty impressive, all things considered. First clean sheet since West Ham and point against the Billion team. I agree, Adam. I 100% agree with you there, mate. It's really good to get a point on the board. Obviously, the last point came against Everton. Brighton, I think outside of City, are probably the best team we've played this season. I don't think that's too bold of a thing to say. I don't know if you... Let me know what you guys think about that. I think that Brighton are the best team outside of Man City that we have played this season. Spurs, on their day, can be a good team, but I don't think they were anywhere near as good against us as Brighton were against us, if that makes any sense. Of course, they should have finished off their chances. They should have had a better game in terms of, converting opportunities. But I think it is disappointing... not disappointing, what am I trying to say? I think it's indicative of them. They're probably the best team other than City we played this season. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm rambling a bit. What did I think of Lingard today? I thought he really worked hard. I do think he's starting to get used to the system. I think he worked hard. Didn't work his socks off like Yates, but I do think he worked hard. And that's useful. That's obviously a good thing for a player like Lingard to get some match fitness and that kind of stuff. He hasn't started a lot recently from what I can remember. So I don't mind that, but you want some more final product. When we signed him, he was signed as a luxury player, as somebody who would, maybe be the difference maker in some matches. And yeah, you know how it is? It's it's upsetting that he's maybe not getting the goals and the assists, but I think he's working hard, and that's a start. I think he worked quite hard today. Surprised Brighton didn't score. Mid-table, mate. You're on that. Yeah, Brighton, mate. They are fantastic, aren't they? They're really, really good. And it's really exciting that it's like, it's not like, what am I trying to say? It's not like a Tottenham or like the Big Six, like a traditional Big Six team. It's cool to see like a sort of different team doing some really different sort of stuff with the side, and obviously hiring exciting young coaches, playing good football, that kind of stuff. Ez with the £2 super chat. Thank you very much, mate, for that. I really appreciate it. Be sure to go check out his YouTube channel. Obviously, he does some stuff on the Forest fan forum as well. And I really appreciate the donation there. Always a great supporter of the channel, which is always nice to see. Hopefully I'm not blowing your speakers out today, mate. Yeah, first away clean sheet in over 23 years in the Premier League. Crazy, innit? And come the end of this season, if we do get relegated, I mean, I'll be happy with the journey we've been on. First time in my lifetime we've been promoted to the Premier League. That shirt up there, so that is in the background of all my videos. That is the away shirt from the year I was born, when we were in the Premier... I think we were in the Premier League that season. We may not have been, I'm not sure. But that's the away shirt from the year I was born, which is just like... It's crazy that it's been so long since we were in the Premier League. Obviously, as someone... obviously, some of you guys, you may remember us in the Premier League or in the First Division in the club, but as a younger fan, it's really exciting to see the team in the Premier League. And of course, we may end up getting relegated this season. I actually think it's something we should probably be preparing for, especially as fans. But at the end of the day, it's been a great journey, and I think we will have a squad that can compete to get back up next season. And in Steve Cooper, obviously, the manager who's here for the long term, he needs more time to get a system developed with the players we have. So that's what we're saying. Anyway, thank you all for your messages, and thank you, Ez, for the donation. I really appreciate it, mate. As always, great support of the channel. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers all the stats for the match. Certainly the most important stats for the match. I thought in terms of individual performances from Brighton, I thought that obviously Trossard was fantastic. He is probably the best attacking player in that team. He blows me away when I see him, to be fair. He's a fantastic player. I thought Lamptey looked bright when he came on. I think there's did he get injured? I think Lamptey got injured a couple of years ago. He did his ACL or something. And he's sort of starting to get his match fitness back. And I do think he was pretty good when he came on. Had a good opportunities to put crosses into the box. I think it's disappointing that England let him go, actually, especially with the injuries at right back at the moment. I think he did a fantastic job at right back for Brighton on the day. Well, right wing back, I guess. Good to see Biancone get a chance. Is it Biancone or Biancon? I don't know how you say his name. Biancone. Yeah, it's really good to see him get a chance. I've seen I think is his brother on Twitter, who's been, I'm going to get it up now. I think his name's Morgan. Has been hyping his brother up on Twitter. Is this him? Yeah, this is him. Hyping his brother up on Twitter. He's got his little hype. I love that, to be fair. I really rate that. And like you say, Ez, it's really great to see him get an opportunity in the Premier League, because I do think he's been disappointing to see him not get the opportunity. I think he came in with actually like a decent price tag, came in pretty cheap, had a really good season with Troyes last season. And I think it's disappointing it took until now to see him get an opportunity in the Premier League, because I think his flexibility, as well as ability to play right back or right wing back as a right-sided centre-back in a back three. I think he came on to play right back for Toffolo when Williams went back over onto the left-hand side. Fair play to Williams as well, by the way, playing right back and left back at like two different stages during the game. Bizarre. Hope to see you on. Yes. I should be on tomorrow night. That is the plan of being on the form tomorrow night with Wolverine and the boys. Hopefully discussing this match in a bit more detail. Hopefully I'll have a bit more notes, basically. I'll hopefully have a bit more to say that isn't just sort of me rambling about expected goals and things like that. I generally think it was an improved performance, but, yeah, we'll see how that goes. We'll see if we're still in the Premier League when that happens. Anyway, those were just some of my thoughts on the match. I'm going to switch you back over to the main thing. Best formation selection for low block. So, in terms of the shape, it looks like a kind of 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 at the moment. And, you know, in terms of formations are very loose, especially in modern football, especially when you're playing a positional system. And I think in terms of the front three, you kind of do need that recognised striker in there. You need someone to sort of hit balls into. I like the idea of Brennan and Gibbs-White as kind of split strikers running the channels, but you need someone who you can get the ball up to, especially in a team like Forest where we are playing sort of back to front or trying to play back to front quite quickly, a bit of kick and chase. You need someone who can sort of drop into the space and sort of pick the ball up and distribute. I think that's what Taiwo was brought in to do. For Union Berlin, he was very good at sort of dropping into the space, getting the ball, driving up and down that left-hand side channel. And ideally, it would be sort of him with Brennan on the right and Gibbs-White on the left. But obviously, shapes and things can change. I quite like the back four at the moment. I think it's offering us a bit more balance in the team. So I would stick with the back four in sort of like it looks like a middle no block in senses with obviously the attacking players sort of looking to sort of run onto balls when we get the opportunity to get the ball forward. I think Surridge would have suited us a lot more in this game. Someone who, as a striker, does a lot of running the channels, but can also drop into space to pick up the ball. Taiwo kind of wants the ball into feet, and then over a couple of yards has the pace to beat a player. I think Surridge probably would have suited this game a bit more. I think he would have given us a bit more of a focal point up front, and obviously hasn't really had his chance to start in the Premier League as well as our striker. But going back to what you're saying, Charlie, I think, yeah, as a middle and low block, I'm pretty happy with what we got at the moment. Midfield, I would like to see O'Brien and Mangala in there with Freuler, just a little bit more dynamism, as good as Yates has been. And Worrell back in for Cook in the defence, I would say. I've been a bit disappointed by Cook in the Premier League. I was never really sure on him anyway, but I think Worrell offers much more of the ball, especially if we are kicking and chasing in a sense. You know, you need someone who can actually put the balls into the channel for us to chase, and I think Worrell does that better. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I've been on for about 20 minutes. I only wanted this to be a quick little live stream, just sort of chatting things about the Premier League, chatting things about the match against Brighton. Overall, I would say it was an improved performance on recent weeks. I think, like I said in the intro, I think the last couple of games have been better, and that's obviously really important because, you know, we're getting towards the World Cup, getting towards halfway through. I think we're about 10 games in through the season, and we do need to start getting some results together. So, I would imagine he'd be back against Liverpool. I think he's probably more suited for that game than Cook. Just, you know, his ability to sort of quickly get balls into the channels. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if Brennan starts, even though he's not been in the best of form. I just think there's going to be space in behind for us to run into with how high Liverpool play their line. And as a finisher, I still think Brennan's probably one of the best finishers at the club. And so it's kind of a case of, you know, one-on-one against Alisson, which is we're going to get an opportunity. I guarantee we will get an opportunity against Liverpool, one-on-one against Alisson, where we've hit it over the top, someone's run onto it. And if there's anybody in that team I'd back to finish that, it's probably Brennan first. Taiwo, you know, he's missed a couple of sitters this season. Dennis can be a bit wasteful in front of goal as well. I think if there was anyone in that team at the moment, barring maybe Surridge, one-on-one with Alisson, I think I'd want Brennan. So as bad form as he has been in recently, I do think it is set up to be a good opportunity for him. And obviously we had the match against them last season. We played 4 at the back in the one against them in the FA Cup. And I think that is obviously set up similar to how we're setting up at the moment. And I thought we played really well in that game. We only lost 1-0. So when he up top, Brian midfield, drop Cook, always. Yeah. I really hope it's, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, obviously being a younger Forest fan, I hope it lives up to the Forest-Liverpool matches from like the 70s and the 80s, where it was a bit more physical, where the players were a bit more sort of stuck in. I really hope, especially for the older fans who obviously are used to seeing that in Forest-Liverpool matches back in the day, I really hope that you guys get that. keep up. Thank you very much, Charlie. I really appreciate that comment there. Really, really appreciate it. In general, the support on the channel has been really, really good over the last year since I started sort of specifically doing the Forest stuff and the analytics stuff. And I enjoy it. It seems to be doing pretty well with the fans. So, yeah, I really appreciate it. Earboy 20-yard streamer. Yeah, you know what? I think we could do a bit of that magic. Against Liverpool, to be honest. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave you for tonight. I think I'm going to love you and leave you. I really appreciate everyone's come by to stop by and chat about Forest tonight against Brighton. Talk a bit about the Liverpool match as well. Ez, again, thank you very much if you're still there for the donation. Really, really appreciate it. Hopefully, you're going to be there tomorrow at the Forest Fan Forum with Wolverine as well. We can talk a bit more about Brighton in a little bit more detail. But that being said, thank you very much for joining me on today's live stream. Enjoy the rest of your week. The match preview for the Liverpool match should be up on Friday, hopefully. I'm going away the weekend, so it depends when I can get the chance to get it up. But either way, thanks for stopping by. I will catch you all later.